When we think about our hair, we think about our own personal style, right? Our mood, what we feel like today. But what if I told you that in historical Korea, it was pretty much the exact opposite? For centuries, a person's hair was basically a public document, a code that anyone could read to know your age, if you were married, your social class, and even your duties to society. So let's crack that code together. Seriously, just take a second and really think about that. Imagine if your haircut right now broadcast to every single person on the street, whether you were married, what your job was, and maybe even what kind of person you are. It's a wild thought, but that's the world we're about to step into. And this quote right here, this is the key that unlocks everything. It just flips the whole script. Hair wasn't just something to make you look good. No, it was a promise. It was a visible agreement you made with everyone around you about who you were and what your place was in the world. Okay, so let's start with this big idea. In a time way before you could just check someone's online profile, your hair was your bio. It told your story to anyone who saw you, instantly. I mean, think about the speed of it. Before you even had a chance to say hello, a person's hairstyle could have already said, I'm an adult with responsibilities, or I'm married, or I'm in a period of mourning, or even, hey, I'm connected to the royal court. It was this incredibly efficient, silent language of social status. All right, so if hair was a language, how do we learn to speak it? Or more importantly, how do we learn to read it? Let's break down the basic vocabulary, the core signals that pretty much everyone back then would have understood in a single glance. Now, before we get to the cool updos and top knots, we have to understand the one rule that gave all of them their power. Hair had moral weight. Your community genuinely believed that the way you groomed your hair was a direct reflection of your inner virtue. And that single idea, that's what turned a simple hairstyle from a personal choice into a major public concern. Okay, so check this out. This table is basically our decoder ring for hair history. You can see how different signals worked for men and women. For adulthood and duty, a man's top knot and hat was the direct equivalent of a woman's structured updo with a pin. Both screamed, I'm a responsible adult. Marital status? That was often shown by the type of hat a man wore or subtle changes in a woman's hairpins. For rank, a man's headgear was a dead giveaway, while for a woman, her accessories could signal her family's wealth. And when it came to mourning, the rule for everyone was the same. Keep it simple, keep it unadorned. Let's zoom in on that top knot for a second. To us, it might just look like a man bun, but historically, it was so much more. It was a powerful declaration that a man was a full, responsible member of society. To wear one was to accept your duties. In fact, to not wear one could be seen as a rebellious act. And for women, these incredible updos, they were basically feats of architecture. I mean, they were engineered. They took time, they took specialized tools like intricate pins and combs, and they took real skill. So a complex, perfectly balanced updo wasn't just pretty, it was a powerful, silent statement about the wearer's access to resources, and just as importantly, her personal discipline. So we have this perfect set of rules, right? This moral script for how everyone's hair should look. But, real life is messy. And this is where the story gets really interesting, when that ideal script collides with the chaotic reality of just trying to live your life. So you've got these two worlds, side by side. On one hand, you have the moral script. This is the official version, rooted in Confucian ideals. It's what you see in those beautiful formal court portraits. But on the other hand, you have life on the street. This is reality. People had to work in the fields, cook over fires. They needed their hair tied up and out of the way. The actual truth of history is found right there, in the gap between these two columns. And here's how that actually looked in someone's day. A woman might start her morning with a really simple, practical braid for doing chores, maybe covered with a cloth. But later that day, if she had to attend a formal event, she would completely transform her hair into something that met those high social expectations. It's the same person, but two totally different hairstyles serving two different purposes. So that begs the question, right? Why did these rules even exist? What was pushing and pulling on society to create these norms? Well, it turns out there were three huge forces at play. It almost always boiled down to these three things: politics, philosophy, and good old practicality. It was rarely just about what was fashionable at the moment. Nope, these were powerful forces that shaped what was considered proper and what was even possible. First up, politics. When you have a powerful central court, what the royals and officials look like becomes the template for everyone else. The court set the standard for a proper appearance. So if you were ambitious or wanted to signal your high status, you'd copy those styles. Second, you have philosophy. This is a big one. The Confucian idea that your body, including every strand of your hair, is a precious gift from your parents was hugely influential. That meant that taking care of your hair wasn't about being vain. It was a profound act of respect for your ancestors. This is what made hair a public moral issue. And finally, there's just real life, practicality. Technology and trade actually played a huge role. For instance, a new, stronger hairpin that came in on a trade route could suddenly make a whole new, more complex hairstyle possible. But at the same time, the reality of everyday work was always pulling things in the other direction, demanding simpler, safer styles. Okay, so we've got the code, and we know the forces that created it. So what now? How can we use this to look at historical paintings, art, and yeah, even our favorite K-dramas with a smarter, more critical eye? Here are 4 common traps we can all fall into. First, don't treat one dynasty's style as if it represents all of Korean history. Styles changed a lot over time. Second, remember hair was a serious social signal for everyone, not just fashion for women and function for men. Third, don't assume the super elaborate styles you see on royals were worn by everyday farmers. And fourth, we all love them, but remember K-dramas are entertainment, not documentaries. They're telling a story for a modern audience. So if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Hair was a language. The pins, the top knots, the braids, they were all words in that language. And because society believed that language had real moral meaning, it was something that was praised, judged, and taken very, very seriously. Knowing this changes everything. The next time you see a historical portrait or a scene in a period drama, you can go so much deeper than just judging the aesthetics. You can stop asking the simple, modern question, and you can start asking this one. What does this person need others to believe about them? That one question right there transforms you from just a viewer into a decoder of history. It turns a simple hairstyle from a static image into a dynamic story about identity, social pressure, and what it meant to belong. And that is how you really start to read the past.